Hey guys, back with Gilman and her synthesis of common consciousness and gender, or a common consciousness that's based on those excessive sex distinctions that we talked about. So she called it androcentric culture. It basically means the same thing as the word patriarchy that we use. I'm going to give you her definition of it. It's a common consciousness in society. And remember, she talked about common consciousness as a system of concepts. And this is the crucial part. Patterned not by human understanding, but by masculine interests and experience. And so we've got here patterned on masculine interests, also experiences. The key thing in that definition is that she says that our culture doesn't evolve neutrally. It evolves based on the way what men are interested in, male experience, which is, I think that is as foundational of a way of thinking about gender as any social fact that we've dealt with this semester. What she's saying is, because if we think back, the guy that I always go to when we talk about culture is Durkheim, because he talked about the collective consciousness. And what she's saying is that I hear you, Durkheim, that there is this morality that is embedded in all of these meanings, all of these beliefs that we have. But you talk about them as though they are sort of neutral and take whatever form they take based on whatever specifics of the society they are in. But that's not right, because in biology, we human beings have these secondary sex characteristics that then we somewhat naturally, although I don't think it has to happen, but somewhat naturally build excessive sex distinction on, and that colors everything that comes after it. So your collective consciousness is a masculine, patriarchal collective consciousness, unless, I think, and because Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she's not going to throw up her hands and say, well, this is just the way it is. It can be changed. We have to understand it, which, sociology, in order to make that happen. But otherwise, there isn't any neutral. The white men that we've studied, I made this point before, the white men that we've studied kind of act as though their experience is sort of the neutral, the default, and they build up an understanding of society based on that. And Charlotte Perkins Gilman's here to say, you're doing that, but it's not natural and neutral. It's masculine. And so every culture that we have is a masculine culture unless we are going to be deliberate about making it not be that way. Okay. In other words, the concepts we use to understand life, all the meanings we attach to things, are defined in terms of masculine interests. She says, so we've dealt with this, she said that it's founded on male dominance. Male dominance specifically in that sexuo-economic relation. Males are dominant there. And then based on that, we define masculine as normal or default, women as, she says, at best, other, and then everything falls in place from there. Once you have said, okay, so men are dominant, and therefore, and women are subordinate, and therefore we will be the ones who are doing this. Once you do that, you're going to end up with an androcentric culture. Everything is going to reflect male interests and male experience. Let's see. She talks about the masculine qualities that the two that she singles out. I guess she doesn't single two things out. The two that she deals with most explicitly, the two masculine qualities that she says our androcentric culture are patterned by are combativeness and hierarchy. Because if it comes out of male dominance implies some degree of conflict. So this idea of combativeness, which leads us in the direction of seeing everything in terms of conflict. So government becomes about competing parties. Education becomes about, economics becomes about competition for market share or to, sell more product or whatever. And combativeness then leads to hierarchy because somebody wins, somebody loses, somebody is superordinate, somebody's subordinate, and then we start ordering culture around that. So the way we understand the law is in terms of punishing somebody who, once they are defined as a criminal, we consider them inferior, and then we don't give them the same rights as everybody else. Your education right now is based on me. I mean, let's be honest, like, hopefully this is helpful to you, but it's not stuff you couldn't find out on your own. But we have decided that we are going to hierarchicalize education so that the teacher is above the student, and therefore I am the fount of wisdom, and I, share it with you. But the reality is, like, we could orient it in a different way. It could be a completely collaborative thing. But because we live in an androcentric culture that is based in dominance, we don't. Okay, so at this point in the lecture, I'm going to draw your attention to something that, if you want to pause me, you can go look at it right now. She talks about how all concepts, kind of carry this masculine interest or masculine experience, but she doesn't single out, she sevens out 7 different false concepts. They're here. I have attached them to the Oaks page. I think I called it Gilman's 7 false concepts. I'm not going to go over them here because it would just be me reading a table to you, but you want to be familiar with it. And it's interesting because she talks about these different concepts and says how they are defined in androcentric society, but how that's wrong, and it leads to wrong thinking. And if our society was neutral and based on sociality, we would have, and she gives a different definition. I'll be interested to see what you guys think about those false concepts. To me, they're pretty persuasive. I mean, I'm pretty willing to go with Charlotte Perkins Gilman on all of this stuff. I think that her insights are pretty great. Okay, so that's it for this video. But I want to end on just taking a moment to acknowledge that kind of spiel I did on Durkheim and how Gilman says, I get your collective consciousness, collective conscience thing, Durkheim, but something precedes that. Something precedes the morality, and it's gender. Our morality is a masculine morality. That idea that gender might come before everything is it's something that sociology hasn't quite grappled with. We, including me in my intro course, I kind of locate gender within culture. Charlotte Perkins Gilman makes a pretty compelling argument that I maybe need to rethink that I maybe need to think about society as started, rooted in gender. And then at least right now, I mean, we can talk theoretically about that not happening, but find me a society right now that we've been studying, sociology is about 1800s forward. Find me an industrial society based on Adam Smith with political liberalism, based on John Locke. Even John Locke, Charlotte Perkins Gilman would say, this whole idea of individual private property, that's not collective. And we start out collective. Individuals are after relationships. So, I mean, it's a pretty good argument that she's making that maybe gender is the fundamental thing. And then on top of that, you layer an economy, a social structure, culture. I don't know. It's something that I'm really seriously considering about, that I might need to retool some of my other courses. But you don't need to know that right now. That's it for this video. I'll be back with a concluding video where we kind of wrap up briefly Gilman and Du Bois.